give this a couple minutes to gather all the people who want to be a part of this. It's nice to see you on here. I can see the numbers going up. And looking forward to hopefully having a helpful conversation. Although we've just received a couple alerts on our phones that is pretty troubling. Hi everyone, thanks for joining. I'm just going to be kind of quiet and wait for you all to have a chance to join, everybody who wants to be a part of this, for a couple minutes. Please keep in mind while we're doing this that we have a 5-month-old with us, so you may hear us doing some parenting. Hi Julie, thank you. Thank you. I think also I should just make some announcements now that we put up a link of Google Forms for everybody who had questions to ask to go ahead and submit them there ahead of time, because we wanted this conversation to be more rhetorical, so one where we kind of speak openly from our hearts and we can address the questions that came in, but not one where it's kind of open season, you know, in more ways than one, on each other. So I appreciate the comment section. I can see it. I chose not to turn it off because I hope to go back and revisit it and learn more afterwards. But it is not a place that we're going to be taking questions today. So hopefully you all know how to write each other personally on here if you want to address each other. Oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
And hopefully those of you who wanted to ask questions did get a chance to submit them by 8 o'clock this morning. So there's 13 of you on here right now. 14, it's going up and it's going up. So I think we should just kind of chill and wait a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you wanna read?
What's up, everybody?
Do you wanna read the news that we just got on our phones?
I mean,
LA is crazy right now. I don't know if any of you are out here.
well, LA is crazy because we just got locked down again. Another curfew 3 nights in a row. And this one's at 5 p.m. So it's getting earlier and earlier. They're telling us to stay indoors. Which sucks. You know, it really does suck. But, you know, our great commander-in-chief, he's telling us that we need to attack the protesters because it's an act of domestic terrorism that they are
That's the latest news.
out. Yeah, it's just coming out.
With military force.
With full military force deployed to different governors' locations that he feels you know, they aren't doing enough as far as forcefully stopping the protest. What is this that we're living in right
We
now?
are at war with each other. And yeah, there's 32 people on here. It feels like a good time to kind of start this conversation.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
So hi everyone. I'm sure everybody has their own reasons for wanting to join this. Hi Alicia. Whatever it may be, I want to start off with a few disclaimers. I'm gonna cry. The first one being that this is very hard for us to do because we are pretty exhausted and we're pretty sad and heavy in our household. And we mentioned that the curfew that's happening in LA, you know, Phil was getting takeout last night when the curfew switched all of a sudden to 6 o'clock, and I was like, get home, get home, get home, because it's, you know, it's scary. And it's a little bit of a divide right now of how I'm feeling. I don't know about you, but, you know, part of me is just like so angry that people of color have to be the one doing these things and having these kinds of talks and hosting these kinds of things online. And then the other half of me is like, well, we're dying and stuff is not getting said. So I'm both like exhausted and outraged enough to want to say something and do something. So that's why I'm here. So disclaimers.
Mm-hmm. We have notes.
We have notes
just to keep us kind of focused.
The first thing I'd like to say is that watching this or liking this is not a substitution for taking action. All of social media is not a substitution for taking action. So we're here to hopefully inform, mainly because both of us are receiving quite a few texts every morning from white friends that we've had for a long time asking us what they can do. And I think that that is exhausting, right, to try to answer individually. So we're hoping that this conversation might help answer some of those questions generally. We're going to do it one time. This isn't an ongoing thing. The rest is 100% up to you. And we're not open for this discussion in our inboxes constantly, right? This is just something we want to do right now. That's our baby in the background. All right. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, is that watching this is, or liking this is, or even sharing this is not a substitute for taking action. The other thing is that Phil and I are not attempting to speak on behalf of all people of color. Obviously, everybody is an individual, and obviously we have our own privilege that we are 100% aware of. So that is not something that we're seeking to do. That being said, we are what a word my friend used the other day. We're very comfortable Black people for you. We're on your TV. Maybe we're
in your ears.
We're public figures. We put our lives out there. A lot of people who are in the know with us are not having a fear-based reaction to us, which gives us a privilege and a platform for which to speak from. And we've just been feeling like that's probably something we should do.
Well, all of that is true. People that are in the know with us, there's nothing that's fear-based with fans and friends and family to us.
To a certain extent. It might not be totally true, but yeah, go
right.
ahead. Yeah.
But to somebody that doesn't know us.
Right. The world, right?
Yeah.
So it's also really important for those of you who know and love us to know that what we experience in the rest of the world outside of our time with just you is very much a part of the racist existence and systematic problems that are happening, that have been in our roots, in our culture for such a long time. So the privilege may live here and doesn't necessarily extend to the rest of our lives. So we're feeling pretty fearful and pretty sad right now. All right, so those are my disclaimers. Thank you for listening. I wanted to start off by getting out of the way and actually giving my husband a chance to talk about this, because while we are all working on being allies for people of color, this is a war in particular against Black men of color, or Black men, obviously, of color, in America. All over the world, but specifically, I would like to know how you're feeling. How are you doing? How are you doing? I'm gonna cry the whole time. It's been a really tough time. Do you want me to move on?
No, I can do this.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I thought that would be.
Yeah, thanks, babe.
Mm. It's
a tough time.
Your mom says we need to talk louder.
It's anger more than anything. There's a lot of anger going on. And I understand the world out there. I understand the protests. I understand the rioting, whether it's, the people that are just trying to stir up issues, but more of the African American and the Black Americans out there. I'm 44 years old. And this has been going on my whole life. The fear of existing. The fear of driving down the street and afraid to get pulled over, not because I'm doing a crime, but because if I get pulled over, what they might suspect me of being or doing. And that's just the color of my skin. That's just how I look. And it doesn't go away. It really doesn't. It's still there. It's still apparent. So to be a Black man in America today is just as fearful as it was before 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago.
Last year. That's what people need to understand. Like last year, the year before, right? Like always. Just always. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a lot of anger. It's a lot of anger that there hasn't been growth. Yes, there's a lot of great people out there, and that's not what we're talking about, but it's the system, it's our society, it's how, the United States of America is moving forward or not, which we're not doing right now. It's not what we're doing right now.
We're not. It's been a regression.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry you're feeling that.
That's all right. Let's keep it going. I got a lot more emotions to let out.
I also am trying to figure out ways to best support Phil right now while he's feeling scared. He's feeling scared in a very different way than I am, and so I think a good thing to know while everybody is trying to figure out how to be an ally is it's really about Black men dying right now, and so I myself am trying to figure out the best way to do that, and Phil and I are not experiencing the same kind of racism right now. Mom can't hear us. She's put it on a few times. There isn't a mic, it's just we're just talking. Is it okay?
Yeah.
All right, I hope everybody can hear us. All right, so here's the deal. We're going to talk about a couple topics. Some that I'll try to speak up. We're going to talk about a couple topics, some of the things that we have received in the questions, and some things that we think would be a good thing to talk about or for people to know, because the number one question that seems to be on white people's minds right now is how to be an ally for us. What do we do?
Yeah.
That's the question I've been getting. What do I do? What do I do? Now I have about 6 words that could probably sum up, what you should do. But I think that it's probably kinder to be more patient and not expect that everybody knows these things. So let's go through some triggering things that aren't helping. So, for instance, Phil, I'm a white person. I don't understand this white privilege thing. I grew up poor and definitely didn't have anything handed to me, so I'm not privileged.
And what's my response to that?
Well, I'm trying to give some scenarios, right?
No,
things are coming up. Like literally, people are writing me saying, like, I need to understand more about white privilege. So, and that can be a thing that folks are still saying. So I just wanted to get this one out of the way because it's been around for a while, and I think it's important. So I'm not privileged. I grew up poor.
Yeah, it has nothing to do with your economic class, how much money you've grown up with, or what hood you might have grown up with. You know, in the beginning, when Myra asked me, you know, what does it feel to be a black man in America today, and I broke down, and you know, my fear is walking down the street, my fear is driving my car. There's a certain way that I have to act in order to ensure that I live and survive in society. The fact that you don't have that as a white person, that's a white privilege, in my opinion. You know, it doesn't matter how much money you've had, doesn't matter where you come from, or you know, what town you're from. But your privilege is just the color of your skin. Yeah.
Right. It's the ability to not have to worry about the same things. And so, you know,
if you've never worried about that type of stuff, if you've never worried about it, then that's your white privilege.
Yeah, there's a post that my friend Alicia posted that's like, I'm a person, you know, experiencing white privilege because I can breathe, I can legally carry a firearm, I can, you know, carry Skittles in my pocket, I have, you know, all of these things. So I think that there is a litany, right, of reasons why people would be privileged. For instance, if you have the option to opt out of this conversation, to opt out of this fight, that is the greatest privilege of all right now. So I think that is really important. I think it's also important, if this helps anybody understand white privilege, to understand that privilege is not necessarily just a black and white thing. You can see I am lighter skinned than Phil is, right? And so I have more privilege than he does because systemically, we could really get into it, but slave masters would rape their slaves, have children that were mixed, and those children got to work in the house versus darker skinned slaves that had to work in the field. And so there is a racial gradient that goes on within black culture, within so many cultures. And I have more privilege than some of my black friends because I grew up in Vermont, and so I speak this way, right? Because I speak this way, so people are not going to judge me in the same way that they might judge them. And so that is my privilege, all right? And so the trick is to just own it. Recognize what your privileges are, own them, talk about them openly with people, because if you're able to do that and encourage others to do the same, then we're all just showing up for each other bare, you know, naked and truthful. And anything less than that isn't gonna cut it. Okay. Phil.
That's me.
All lives matter.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, all lives matter. Yes, hashtag all lives matter. They do. However,
maybe not the hashtag, because that's, yeah.
Or whatever it is. All lives matter. You're right, correct.
Sure.
Every human being on this planet Earth matters. Every living person on this planet Earth matters. But that comes from the Black Lives Matters movement. And it's a frustrating topic to talk to people about. It really is.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because white people aren't just dying in the streets.
Right.
White people aren't getting killed or getting treated the way that they are. So, you know, if you're looking at the movement and if you're, you know, trying to come up with a rebuttal for Black Lives Matter and you say all lives matter, you're right. All lives do matter. However,
we're not talking about all lives.
We're not talking
about the devalued ones.
We're talking about the black people in America and all over the world, really, but the black people in America who are consistently getting murdered, killed, beat, treated as less than nothing on a consistent basis all the time. And it's been going on forever. It's been going on my whole life. That's why Black Lives Matter. That's why I hate it when people say all lives matter.
Right.
It's
not the point.
Yeah, it's not even the discussion. It's not even like along the same tracks.
This one really frustrates me because I think that what folks need to understand is that Black Lives Matter is an aspirational saying. We're aspiring to matter. That's why that phrase is around. That's why this movement is happening. Black Lives Matter, it's not saying Black Lives Matter more than yours. It's saying Black Lives Matter because historically we consistently have not mattered. So I hope that really sinks in because there's just this I've heard the Black Lives Matter movement, it's been called a reverse racist movement. Like, I've heard everything, and it is an aspiration for us to matter. Think about that. It is an aspiration for us culturally to value our lives because the world is not showing us that. I saw something recently that had a pretty good way of putting it, which was like, yes, all cars matter. All of the cars, all cars matter. But if one car is on fire over there, maybe that's the car that needs the love and attention. Maybe that's the car that matters right now. So what you're doing when you say all lives matter is you're completely erasing or devaluing, the on fire humans who need all of the love and support and attention right now that they can get, and self-esteem and cultural self-esteem, things that have been ripped from us to survive. Once again, if this is not something that you worry about, that is a privilege. Phil, I am white. I have Black friends and people that I love in my life, and I reached out to them and texted them during this time, and so I'm feeling I'm not racist.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that statement is clearly you're not racist. It has nothing to do with being racist or not being racist. But I think that during this time, reaching out to your Black friends and reaching out to the people of color that you have in your circle, we don't need that.
No.
We don't. That's not what we need. Like, we know shit's fucked up. Like, we know that our close friends that are white or are not of color are, sincere in their beliefs that things are wrong. Things will never, ever, ever change if you only reach out to the people that you're close with and you have this conversation. You need to go out there and talk to people that you may not be close with and have this exact same type of conversation of what the hell is wrong and what the hell is going on and what do you really believe in. That's what really needs to happen.
And I'm going to go off on that one in a second, but I think one of the biggest misconceptions about racism is that you're either, a KKK member burning a cross on a lawn, or you're not racist. And there are so many microaggressions, and there's so much that happens in the middle of that can be really unhelpful, if not also overtly racist. So I think if you say, I have a Black friend, therefore I'm not racist. I know a Black person, therefore I'm not racist. That has nothing to do with it. We are token Black people in a lot of your lives. And I don't know if you all realize that, how many people are experiencing, for instance, the state of Vermont, where I'm from, third whitest state in the union. How many people are experiencing conversations with Black people outside of, my concerts that come a few times a year? How many people are experiencing Black music, live or other, otherwise, outside from my few concerts that I have a few times a year? I have that experience so many times. As soon as I step off the plane, it's like, oh my gosh, I totally forgot that this is pretty much a racially homogenized state. And so I think that it's because you go to a Myra Flynn concert, or because you watch Phil on Bar Rescue, or because you've got, whomever that you went to high school with who has somehow been allowed into your circle without any fear, does not mean that you have good context for what it is to react well or treat others well who happen to be Black people that are not in your circle. And we'll touch on that in a minute, because that's one of, I think, the greatest responsibilities that we all have right now, is to reach out to people we don't know. So speaking of that, reaching out to your friends of color who you are not afraid of, right? When you are feeling very, I want to not say the wrong thing. When you are feeling very excited, right, about the things going on in the world, and you're feeling like you really want to put an end to it. So the first thing you do is you call your friend of color and you say, what do I do? What do I do? Herein lies the problem. There's quite a few problems in there, actually. I don't know if you want to touch it, because I'm going off.
No, I'm going to jump in.
Okay, sorry. First of all, I could have been having a good day. I could have been having a very peaceful day with my newborn baby. And when you call and are freaking out, you put me as a person of color in a position of responsibility to assure you that you're doing the right thing, assure you that it's going to be okay. So even though this is happening to us, I have to take my entire stance and flip it to console the white person who is calling me and having a hard time knowing what to do. Secondly, if I'm having a good day, you're re-traumatizing me. Maybe I was able to, forget about this for a moment and be with my family and feel okay. 10 phone calls later of white friends calling to ask what they should do, and I've all of a sudden gotten into a position of doling out homework assignments for people is not the way. That is not the way. I think re-traumatizing us is a big part of it. I also think it's like bringing sand to the beach, or bringing liberalism to NPR. If I walk into NPR and say, hey guys, I'm a liberal and, I'm going to vote Democrat and you can't do anything to stop it, I'm pretty sure everybody at NPR would look up at you and be like, yeah, so,
okay.
good, we're all that way as well. So going to a brown and Black person and saying, this is awful, the world is so racist, everything is fucked up and everything's on fire, it's like, yeah.
No shit.
We know. It's been that way for a really long time. Welcome to the fight. Welcome to the party. I guess the first step is awareness. And we can move on to this another time, but the trend at the moment is awareness of it anyway. So I think it's really important to know that it's not useful and it's not helpful. What does do really well, and I'm going to use this example again. If I'm a liberal and I decide to run into the Republican National Convention and say, this is why being a Democrat is good, this is what's great about liberalism, all of those people in that room are going to look at me and sneer and think that I'm crazy for having said something like that. They're not going to agree with me. But there might be one person in the corner who's like, yeah, right, I can totally see why being a Democrat is important, and they might switch, okay? Now I'm using this very, very broad analogy to say, you have to speak to people, you have to speak to other white people. If you are outraged and you are stressed out and you are feeling emotional about this, that is great. That energy is awesome. But it is not awesome if you burden the few people of color in your life with the responsibility to make you feel better or give you homework assignments of how to take care of that. You need to reach out to other white people. You need to sit and have that conversation on the phone. How many of you are legitimately, because everybody's asking how to be a good ally, right, are legitimately calling your white friends and family members? Who's calling racist grandma? Who's calling racist grandma?
Or grandma's friends.
Or grandma's friends. Who's calling racist, Uncle Pete or whatever, and saying, hey, have you seen what's going on? This is absolutely horrible. I'm outraged. I want to talk to you about it, and we need to spark a conversation. That isn't really happening.
No, it's not happening. And, I think that a big part of that is, a lot of white people will say it doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference if I just, post something or speak out or make a phone call. But it does, because just like Myra said, if you walk into a room full of people that might be against you, and there's that one or two other people that agree with you, those conversations need to happen. Those conversations need to flow. And it's very similar to like voting. If somebody says my vote doesn't matter, what's the point of voting? It's just one little vote. I'm just one little voice out there. Like, why am I going to say anything? Why am I going to rock the boat? Like, you need to. You need to have those conversations and not expect any type of return from them. They just need to be a continuous conversation that happens all the time.
It needs to be a part of your vocabulary.
Yeah.
And that brings me, beautiful segue, to the next topic I have, which is white defensiveness and white fragility. These are, and white paralyzation. There's 3 things I wanted to talk about. Our baby's doing some cute stuff over there. All right. White defensiveness. You want to speak on that?
You want to start?
I mean, here's the thing, is that, white people aren't just defensive with people of color when we try to say something online or whatever, speak up for ourselves. White people are defensive with each other. It is like a very ingrained cultural thing to not want to feel guilty and not want to feel shameful and not want to be made to feel like you're being blamed for something that you feel that you were not a part of. So it's an impermeable wall.
Yeah, the defensiveness comes from, well, this is my belief and this is what I've been through along the side of what you guys have been through. Like, I'm there too. I understand what you guys are saying because I've been through it as well. That part of it, like the white defensiveness, is you can never have been through it. You can never have had the exact same experience as Black America.
You never could have, and I find the defensiveness to be manipulative as well, because it's like, it's very wrapped up in things like, well, all lives matter.
Yeah.
Essentially, all lives matter is a defensive reaction to Black Lives Matter. Well, what are you saying? My life doesn't matter, right? It's defending something that has nothing to do with you. So it makes it virtually impossible for people of color to come and speak to you about how they're feeling, what they need, okay? Because if you are going to be defensive, it is silencing. And I've been silenced many times in my life by white folks. I can think of an example. We actually went to a birthing center to try to figure out if we wanted to give birth at a birthing center. And I was trying to explain to the woman there, I don't want to give, I would like an OB who's a person of color, please. And I remember the owner of the center saying, well, I would never choose an OB based on race, right?
Yeah.
And my, immediate reaction was to then get quiet. This was my birth. My birth. And I was like, okay, she didn't feel that way. And later I was just like, dude, you would never have to feel that way. Of course you wouldn't choose an OB based on race. You would never have to deal with the number of Black deaths that are happening in America due to neglect of, Black women. So it's just absolutely unhelpful to be defensive. Evelyn's going to town with us.
She's having a conversation.
I love her. Okay, so that's defensiveness, right? Leave some space to listen. Don't be defensive. Leave some space to listen. It's not always going to come on a platform like this. Brown people are not always going to take the time. So, and they don't need to. It's not our responsibility, right? So, leave some space if you see something that brings up that gut reaction in you that you need to defend it, chill out, sit back, and see if you can maybe learn something, right? White fragility. White fragility is a complex one. Aaron's on there saying it's that white fragility. Yeah, I think there's white defensiveness, a white fragility, and white paralyzation. I think those can be three very unhelpful responses. Fragility is like this: I don't want to upset the apple cart. I don't want to feel shame. If I reach out and somebody doesn't give me the exact right reaction, I'm going to retreat and never talk about it again. Or this is being done to me, or maybe it's traumatic for me to have a conversation with a brown person who speaks up for themselves because they didn't say it as nicely as I would have wanted, and I'm not receiving it in the same way as sorry.
No, I was going to say in the same way though, speaking with their white friends, and the white and the response isn't positive.
Right.
So like that's like the fear of just like I can't really talk about this because I'm going to ruffle the boat too much.
Fear, right? That fragility comes from it's fear-based, right? So I guess my only response to white fragility, which is awful, is you have to get over it, because if you already have the privilege to opt out of conversations like this one, I don't think you should be allowed to have the privilege to feel fragile about it also. Yeah. I hope that's okay to say. But we all can't afford to be tiptoeing around each other right now, black, white, whatever, because people are dying. So the more you let people know that you can only take on so much, and if you take on any more, it's just gonna no. This is a problem that it needs direct communication, direct action, and we ain't got time to be fragile. We've never had time to be fragile, so that's also something to think about. We've never had that time. The last thing I want to talk about is white paralyzation.
The last thing?
Well, the last thing about, we're going to be here forever. No, we're not. The last on that list, I think, of things that are really problematic responses is white paralyzation. And that's when white people, they're not feeling fragile, they're not feeling defensive, but they're just like straight up paralyzed, and they do nothing as a result. Try to put it out of sight, out of mind. Everything will go back to normal. And a lot of that is also what you were saying about fear-based, right? The fear of maybe, what are some fears? Like the fear of maybe having people at your job think that you're different, or like what? I don't know.
I'll tell you, it's a confusing question, because what is the fear? Like what is anybody afraid of? If you're not racist and you believe that everybody should be treated equally and have the right chance at everything that they can achieve in life, then what are you afraid of to talk about it? Right. Why are we not talking about it? Why are we not putting it out there? I'm not talking about social platforms or anything like that, but even if it's just in the workforce and one-on-one, and you might see somebody or have a conversation with somebody that might have a different point of view, and then you shy away from that conversation because you don't want to get into it. Why not get into it?
Right.
Why not continue to have these conversations? Again, I'm 44 years old.
Preach.
We've been going through this my whole life.
I am not 44 years
I think,
old.
You were alive in the 80s. Miami riots in the 80s.
Fair enough.
90s.
Just trying to talk about
Rodney King.
Oh, yes.
We get into the 2000s, and that's when shit really started to hit the fan, because technology started to expand. And then everything started coming out in the 2000s, and Ferguson and South Carolina and everything that's happening currently right now. It's not brand new. It's not all of a sudden racism just came into the United States. It's always been going on forever, and it hasn't changed. So what are you afraid of to have this conversation if it's something that you don't believe in?
Right.
Because I'll tell you what, it's Avalon's 5 months old. 20 years from now, when she's 20 years and 5 months, she's probably going to be sitting on the couch with her loved one having the same fucking conversation. Sucks. And we can only talk about it amongst each other so much.
Yeah.
We need everyone to talk about it.
We need everyone to talk
Everyone
about
that believes in it to talk about it. It's just not right.
White paralyzation, I think, is the most unhelpful, because it's really people who are great at building a wall around them based on fear and not letting anything permeate it. And so, the thing about these three things that can be really harmful is that it ceases conversation, like Phil was just saying. And the thing is, you're never, ever, ever going to be at physical risk in the same way that we are. But could you put yourself at least at social risk to make a change so that we can live? A lot of people that have been asking me, what do I do? What do I do? How do I do this? What do I do? First of all, you got to stop checking on me. You got to stop texting and saying, call me if you're having a hard time.
If you need anything,
if you need to talk about it. If you want to talk about it, you can give me a call. That is what's called a white savior. I don't need to call you to talk about what's happening, right? What I need is for you to call another white person, or you to post, because now we're in a pandemic, and so I actually don't think that social media is a bad tool to use to fight this fight right now socially.
I think it's a great.
So I've seen some really beautiful posts out there, I would say. A lot of them I'm watching white people put themselves at risk on their posts of what? Like losing followers, right?
Yeah.
Losing followers. Maybe they've lost some followers because they're standing up for what they believe in. Maybe they've lost some friends. Maybe they've got some family members who are conservative and don't agree, and they haven't posted. And I've seen some of those people breaking those barriers and saying some beautiful things about their own privilege. Now, what is a bad post versus a good post right now? Because a lot of people are trying to figure out how to use social media with this. I think a problematic post is one where, well, let's see, she actually said this. Where you're trying to kind of take on in a mascot way, or a sloganist kind of way, messages like "I can't breathe," as if this is something that you're going through, right? What I have seen that is a beautiful post is, I'm a person who has used my privilege my entire life, and these are the following ways. I am now here to say that this is enough. I'm joining this fight. Here are some resources for moving forward. That lets people know where you stand, lets people know what you own, lets people know who you are. It lets us know that you're in our corner. It is absolutely a beautiful way to go about it, in my opinion. So, hi baby. So I think that that's really important. In general, just putting yourself socially at risk for the greater good of us being less physically at risk is what needs to happen. So whoever you need to piss off in your circle to get this done is important. The other thing is, not only do you need to feel comfortable, talking to other white people who don't agree with you, the next issue I want to bring up is context. What is your context for black people? We spoke a little bit about having one black or brown friend in your inner circle. Well, that's somebody you're comfortable talking to. So How are you at talking to black or brown people that you're not comfortable talking to? Talk a little bit about the woman and her dog in New York. And yeah, that woman.
Yeah, I mean, you guys all know out there everything that's been going on, and you know, one thing that really stands out is that woman in I think her name was Amanda Cooper in Central Park, where she called the cops on the black man, and
they might not know what happened.
Okay, well, in case you guys don't know, woman was walking her dog in Central Park off leash when it should have been on a leash. An African American man who's a bird watcher was in the park, asked her to put her dog on the leash because that's the law, and you can tell that she simply got offended by this man telling her to put her dog on the leash,
and then scared,
and then scared, but I mean, I don't know if she was scared.
She was so scared she was choking her dog out.
But I think that she was. I think that whole thing was she was offended that somebody that was less to her was telling her to do something, was trying to give her a rule, was trying to say this is what you need to be doing when it was the law, and so she immediately jumped on what she knew would hurt him. Was that I'm going to call the cops and tell them that an African American man is assaulting me in the park before she even made the call. This lady, from research and you know everything that everybody knows now, is Democratic. She's very liberal. She voted for Barack. You know, I'm sure she has a lot of black friends out there. But she knew that one thing that was going to hurt this man in the park was by telling him that she's going to call the cops and tell them that an African American man is assaulting her.
Well, I saw that differently. I saw that as a woman who was suddenly afraid. And because in the video she's saying, don't come any closer, don't come any closer. So it seems like he's just like, dude, put your dog on a leash. And she's just like, stop it, don't come any closer, I'm calling the cops. And so what I wanted to say is that in context, right? Like if you don't have brown people in your life, it does no good to be, you can be as liberal as you want and listen to all the NPR that you want and this is what I find to be really, really actually a big problem, is that you may support brown and black people in theory from a distance or from a bubble, but if you don't know them, you're still maybe gonna run the opposite direction in a dark alley if you see a black man.
It's happened to me multiple times in my life. It's happened so much.
So that's the thing, right? Like if you don't have any context for black or brown people, if you don't take it upon yourself to know black or brown people, to go where black or brown people live, eat, have small businesses, we run this world since forever. And if you've made it a life's mission to stay out of those places and stay out of that space of, you know, xenophobia, like if you are not facing your xenophobia or the fear of the unknown, then when you are approached by somebody who's brown or black, you will possibly react in the same way. So it's really important to just do the work, right? Like, and that's kind of what I'm gonna end with on this whole thing. We're not there yet, but context is everything. Thank you for donating to, you know.
Wait, what do you mean end this whole thing?
No, I'm just saying thank you for donating. I'll talk about that at the end, but you know, thank you for donating to such and such organization that you heard that black people are a part of. But if you don't have context, you can be just as dangerous as, you know, your average racist. So that's really important. Okay. I'm a person of color, and I have a child of color.
Yeah.
What am I saying to my kids right now?
Protect yourself. You're a person of, well, if you're a person of color and you have a child of color,
I just think it's important for people to know what we are having to say to our children.
Yeah, and even the white people out there that might have a child of color.
That's
too.
separate, but yeah.
That is separate?
Yeah. What are we having to say to our children?
You gotta protect yourselves out there. Be smart. Be smart. Put your hands at when you're driving at 10 and 2 or 9 and 3, or whatever they're telling you in driver's ed right now. Respect the man, which is the law. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, sir. No, ma'am. Keep your eyes forward. Don't look at people in the eyes. You need to be cautious of what you do. I mean, this is stuff that's ingrained in me. This is what I go through every single day of what I do, of just knowing where my place should be. And that's a major problem, I feel. That us as Black Americans, teaching our generations growing up that you are lesser than somebody else, so this is how you need to act in order to ensure that you are still around and that you're alive. That's a problem.
That's our reality. I've been pulled over with Phil before. We've been stopped at the border, and it's very different for Phil than it is for me. So again, this is a problem with Black men in America as they are being perceived as threats. So I think it's important to know what it is we have to do in our household to stay safe. Phil, what about white parents that have a child of color?
Well, I tell you what, it's you got to be smart. You got to talk to.
I think it's important to acknowledge that we each have one.
Yeah.
Right? My father is white and Phil's mother is white. Okay.
Yeah.
So what is it? Yeah. Sorry, keep going. What is it that they can do right now?
Yeah. Right now, you got to be honest with your children, and the biggest thing that you could do is you're going to do everything to protect them. You're going to tell them not to go to places, how to be respectful, how to act, how to talk. They don't carry the privilege that their parents carry. They just don't. In addition to that, I think it's everything that we've been talking about too. It's just, if you're a white person and you have a child of color, you got to speak. You got to have that communication. You got to have that voice out there for everybody else, because you have the privilege to be on that platform to be able to talk about it.
Right.
Your child doesn't. Your kid doesn't.
Yeah, your voice matters. I think it's also really important to recognize that your white skin cannot protect your child in this world.
No, never.
Ever.
Never. I know my parents thought that. I don't know if your parents thought that, but it was always like, one love, and you have the best of both worlds, and you're half black, half white. It's this lovely thing, and it's a beautiful thing. I think we're a beautiful mixture of a lot of different DNA, but the reality of it all is be careful out there.
Reality of it is you're black. So that's the other thing I wanted to say is, no, I did not have that experience. Both of my parents raised me as black. But I think it's really important to know, as somebody who's mixed, or parents of somebody who's mixed, that when we get pulled over, cops are not piecing and parceling us by the percentage of black and white that we are, right? They're not looking at Phil and saying, oh, he's half white, we'll take it easier on him. It's not possible, right? They're looking at him as black. And so I would also say to those of you who may be biracial, who maybe have been and want to continue to identify as biracial, that's great, but yeah, be careful, because the world does not care. The world does not care. And if you're black, you're black. And it's a scary world for black people right now. So a lot of that needs to stop. I think the other thing is, white parents and black children trying to shield them from these atrocities does them no justice, does not protect them in the end. So Okay. We had a talk with a good black male friend of ours the other day who's actually friends with George Floyd.
Oh, yeah.
So it's, you know, getting closer and closer to home. And one of the things that he said was, in order for there to be peace, there has to be fairness. And these cops have never been fair with us, ever. And so I wanted to also bring up something that's not helpful in allyship, which is give peace a chance. All we need is love. We're all in this together. Everyone is one. Can you think of any more?
No, I mean...
Give peace a chance. Yeah, we're trying. All we need is love. Not true. We need a whole lot more. A whole lot more than love.
These are all like feel-good statements. These are all feel-good...
It's woke culture is what it's technically called. You know, it's believing in some like hippie heart of hearts that, you know, we're all coming from the same level of awareness and risk, which is not true.
Things just have to be different, you know, and all those sayings are sayings that have been happening for years, since before I was born. You know, all we need is love, and we're all in this together. It's just not true. It's just not what's happening. And again, I go back to 20 years from now, you know, my baby girl is going to be an adult, going to be having these same damn conversations. And there's a lot of people that understand that it's, you know, systematic racism, and it's embedded into our culture and into our country. And you're right, it is. When is it ever going to get out of it? When are we ever going to fix it? Because all we keep doing is talking about it and talking about how we're all together and we all unite and we're all one people. But until there's any change that really happens, you know, a lot of people are talking about, like, we need to be educated. We need to educate people. Yes, that's part of it. We need to change politics. We need to get into our system and change things. Yes, that's part of it. But if you're not, fuck that. You're not, if we're not, sorry, I apologize. But if you're not out there having conversations about it, then it's never going to change.
It's never going to be heard.
It's never going to be heard. It's not going to be heard from this side.
Yeah. Can't give peace a chance. Can't all just have love. It needs a fight to, you know, it's systemic. This is something that's grown in the roots in the soil of our country. It's going to take more than good intentions, well-intentioned people, right? So again, all of these things, all of these kinds of comments are not being allies. They are a, in my opinion, pretty transparent way to evade action. And so please just think about that. I don't know if any of you grew up with this statement, but I grew up with a lot, which was, well, people are they're ignorant. They're not racist. They're ignorant. And you know,
I believe that when I was younger.
Yeah, I believed it when I was younger too.
Right.
People aren't racist. They're ignorant, and if they're ignorant, they don't know any better. There's a lot wrong with that topic because it's 2020. Here's the deal, people. We have the internet, we have libraries, we have each other, we have had a black president, right? If you're claiming ignorance still, you might just be racist. There's no reason to not know. There's just no reason to not know more or not know better. You don't have to live in my skin or Phil's skin to do the work to understand the many layers that exist within this problem. And if you would prefer not to do the work and instead maybe like this video right? That's on you. But I am no longer accepting ignorance as a get out of jail free card. You know, when people are dying, I don't think we should accept that anymore. I think that there's ways to learn, and I think it's on you to figure that out. So hopefully this is a good start. I was telling a good friend of mine this morning, the way that you have ever researched anything that you've cared about in your life is the way that you should research this, right? So, you know, running around and moaning that this is a atrocious time and it needs to stop, and, you know, look at all the hate in the world. It's not, it's like bringing sand to the beach, like I said earlier. Like, we got it. Everybody knows. What are you doing about it? What are you learning about it? What groups are you forming? You know, what groups are you joining?
What conversations are you having? It doesn't even have to be such a daunting task that you have to go out there and change, you know, everybody's mindset or really push forward as like this major activist. But it just starts with you sharing your voice and sharing your thoughts and sticking with it and talking to people and letting them speak. And listening, you know, is very important, and not always coming back with like what's right or what's wrong, but just listening, but just having this conversation. Nothing's gonna change. Nothing's gonna change unless we do things differently. We've done it all, man, up to this point. You know, like we really have. We've gotten people behind us. We've protested. We've, you know, held our fists in the sky, and we kneeled at the football games, and we've done everything we could to try to bring attention to it. And absolutely, I do not condone any type of violence or rioting or anything like that, but like, I'm all about these protests that are going on. And if we didn't have a little 5-month-old right next to us, we would be out there protesting with them and having our voice heard. So this is the way that we're doing it.
Yeah, well, yeah, the protests are looking very different in Los Angeles than they are in a lot of places too, so we should say that. We've got a 5 p.m. curfew. But Martin Luther King had a really great quote. He said, a riot is the language of the unheard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know a lot of folks are feeling some type of way about the riots right now. And yeah. I hate that people are having opinions on the riots, because those who are having them would never experience the kind of pain, damage, and fear that it would take to have to riot, right? So there's that's going on. I also just think that people aren't being heard. You know, people aren't being heard. And the way that you can show people that they are being heard, besides just listening, is to take action. And so this won't stop until we take action. So, to wrap this up, and in conclusion, I think it's important to say, to do a recap, right? So, how to be a good ally. Listen to your inner and outer circle, people of color. Even if that comes in the form of rage, leave room for rage. Because there is a rage inside of us from years of this, right? So leave room for rage. Listen. Call a white friend. Call a white friend you don't agree with. Try to get them to agree with you. Do that work.
Or not even agree with you, but just listen. Just hear you. Just be quiet for a second and just hear you.
Yeah, and do it enough over and over and over again that you think that you've made a difference or a change. Because once again, that's how we wake up in the morning, right? Convincing people we'll be good at our job. convincing people that we're not scary and harmful, convincing. So, right, do a little bit of that too. Put yourself at that same risk that we are, okay? Posting is great because we're in a pandemic. If we weren't, I'd say please go visit people and try to actually get actively physically involved with people to make a change. But if you're going to post, try to post things that are aware, self-aware, so aware of your own privilege, aware of where you're coming from, have ownership, take ownership of your privilege, take ownership of the things that you've never experienced in your life, and also reveals that you're an ally, so that people that are in your inner or outer circle know where you stand. Okay. And I said at the start of this that I had 6 words that could probably, I could sum up this whole thing. My 6 words are, go out and do the work. Go out and do the, okay, yes, 6 words. Go out and do the work. Read the books. One of the things that we did was put together a link for resources. So books and just writings, just maybe even, I think there's some YouTube clips in there, things that people have found really helpful for them. So we put together a little group of resources, and we're going to post that after this so that everybody can check that out. I'll post that actually here in this thread. So doing the work means literally just doing the work. Doesn't mean calling the one person of color you know. It means going out and doing the same research, right? Phil has some places that you can donate to.
Yeah, there's a ton of places to donate to, and if you guys are looking to share, there's the official George Floyd Memorial Fund. Google it. It's very simple. Black Visions Collective is super important. Reclaim the Block. Honestly, go out there. Just if you're on social media, which you are because you're following us and we're here, follow some things out there that are better than the Kardashians or what the hip hop culture is. Some things that can really influence. I think that this social media is such a downfall to society in general, but it could be something that can really lift us up altogether. So if you guys are out there, follow some things that really can make a difference.
So there's also the Minnesota Freedom Fund, Reclaim the Block, Black Visions Collective, and the official George Floyd Memorial Fund. Yeah. So these have been organizations that have been proven to be legit that you can donate to, and I'll be happy to put those in our resources list as well. And so with that, because we're not taking questions on here, but we want to thank you all for tuning in. I think we just felt compelled to say something because we are people who I think can easily blend into a comfortable space of, we're comfortable Black people for you. We are entertainers, and we can be fearful ourselves of ruffling the white audience that we've so carefully collected and curated over the years, and with love and with our hearts and our talents forward. And I think it's getting to a point where it's really important for us to, keep you or lose you, so to speak. People are dying. Our people are dying, and it's awful. So, with that, we have a challenge for you as well. The true progress of this can be shown when white people start hosting Facebook Live conversations about how to be a good ally to their brown or Black friends. That's when we've seen true progress. So I want to pass the baton to you. Will you host this talk? Will you accept questions? Will you do the hard thing? Will you give me a place to go online and vent about how hard it's been for me? Will you give Phil a place to be listened to? Will you create the platform? Will you create the platform? Will you create the platform? Will you take this responsibility off of us? And will you take it on yourself? Can we attend your Facebook talk? Can we? Because that is what it would take to truly show some progress at all. Will you do the hard thing?
Have these conversations, guys. Get out there and talk about it. Support everything that's going on and all you guys believe in. And I know that there's a lot of people out there that are for the movement and kind of questioning the movement and if it's really the right thing to do. Just whatever's in your heart. Like, you guys need to get out there and have this conversation, not with us, not with the Black people, because I can't even stress to you. Every single morning I take a walk with baby Avalon, okay? And there's things that I go through in my mind on this walk of where I've been in my life and what I've been through in my life and where we're at currently right now. And again, I refer back, this is my third time referring back to the top of this conversation, but I'm angry. I'm angry at where we are as a society. I'm angry at where we are as a country. That we really haven't moved forward from where I was when I was born 40 years ago, or whatever it was. We really haven't made a lot of progress. Yeah, you know, it's crazy because you're like, what do you mean? You guys there was a Black president and there's so many more rights and, you know, things are better now. Things aren't the way that they should be. Things aren't how this country was built. Things aren't going the way that they're supposed to be going. And a lot less of us talking about it and a lot more of you talking about it is where the change is going to happen.
So I want to see you host a Facebook Watch. And you know, I saw one comment on here that I'll speak to, which says, I'd like to know more before I hosted something like this so I don't say anything misguided. I don't know if you guys know this, but we don't know what we're doing. Being brown doesn't give us some like inside knowledge on the right way to do this. We don't have a clue. All we know is that we want to. So I think the baby is done. We are done. Progress will be seen. One of you take me up on this challenge.
We'd love to be a part of it.
We'd love to be a part of it.
Yeah.
We'd love to be a part of it. So let's keep the conversations going within the circles they need to be in.
No, I don't want to start replying to the comments.
Don't do it.
Yeah, we need to be better.
Yeah, be better. Do the work. Do the hard thing.
We need to change. We need to grow. We don't need to go back to anything. We don't need to like rebuild this country. We need your voice. We need it to be heard. We need to change. And we are we're not going to like ignite some political movement. We're not going to ignite some like massive change, but it's all about like our voice sharing with you guys and having this conversation, and hopefully it can spread out at some point somewhere else. And if there's more pockets of us and more pockets of you guys that are willing to take what we're talking about and apply it, then that's where we might see a little bit of a difference.
Right, but the big thing is to not put it on your brown and Black people to have to do this.
No.
Because we are trying to live our life and reminded daily that we're being killed. It's a little exhausting, right? And totally happy to be here today. Again, we offered this, but it's on you now.
Thank you.
It's on you now. Thank you. Cleo says, do we want to be compensated? No.
No.
I want to be compensated by somebody taking me up on my challenge. Love you guys.
Love you all.
Be safe.